I've been working on this off and on all winter. This is going to be the drain field for my septic system. I got my septic tank is right over here to the right of us. Right here in front of us right now is where I had the garden set up, where the excavator's sitting this side of it to where that sand is. That's where we had the raspberry patch. We had a pretty good raspberry patch there for a few years. It got starts from my grandpa's old raspberry patch that he had 60, 70 years ago, and they're wonderful raspberries. And we're not going to have any raspberries this year because we had to move the patch out of there, and a lot of the canes for this year's season got busted up, so we're not going to have much. But we got new canes coming off of the rhizomes and stuff, so we'll have plenty of raspberries next year. Judy's got them started in a new spot. This is going to be our drain field, and we took the raspberry patch out of here. I dug all this out down to hard pan, to clay, hauled all that material that came out of here over where the garden area is now. We're going to use it for fill over there in the spot there. There's a deep hole. And then I came in and brought in some material from a friend of mine's pit, and we hauled in, well, the area over there where the bouncy house is, where the paint booth is, we hauled about 20 loads of material out of his pit over into there. Now that's glacial deposit material. It's got a lot of rock in it, but it's got a lot of fines in it. In fact, we used to screen it and use it for lawns, to make lawns around town. It had some of the best material for making yards and lawns around, but it's not permeable. The water doesn't flow through it. So anyway, I hauled in about 20 loads or more, maybe almost 30 loads out of my dump trailer over there, and brought that up about 2 feet almost, and then hauled in some rock because that material won't hold up on the steep bank here. We hauled some rock in out of another pit. We got permit from the Forest Service for a mineral permit to haul rock out of the pits. Shot rock, big rocks, and armored the face of that, and then with the smaller stuff out of that pit I used to put down on that pad over there. And then we hauled in a whole bunch more, I think 12 loads out of my dump trailer from my friend's pit, and put down a good solid bed here on top of the clay. Then I got a load of drain rock from one of the gravel companies here in town, and put down about a foot deep layer of drain rock on top of that impermeable stuff from my friend's pit. And I put fabric between that, and then I put fabric over the drain rock. And the purpose of the drain rock is so that surface water, groundwater here, there's a lot of water in the soil here, in the ground. It's constant. You dig down and there's water in there, and it just slowly flows down through here, downhill. And so that drain rock layer was put in there so there would be a place for the groundwater to drain through this so it doesn't flood this. Got that down with a layer of fabric on top of that, and then I got 2 10-yard loads of sand from a local sand company to put down here for a bed on that, and also to bed in my septic tank. And once we got the septic tank bedded in and that first layer of sand down here, then I started hauling sand out of a sand pit here. We got mineral permit, as I said, from the Forest Service, and there's a place out there that has this beautiful sand in it, and I've been hauling out of that. I don't know how many loads of sand that I've got in here that I brought this up with, but I brought it up about 2 feet. I think there's about 15 loads of sand in here. Then I spread all that out with the excavator and moved it back and forth and spread it all out and got it as level as I could with the excavator. And we let it sit for a while because I was working on the airplane, and I was just kind of working on this between working on the airplane wing and getting it ready to go. Anyway, that had a chance to get settled in, and it rained on several times and stuff, and it had a chance to get all settled in. And then I took a level out here and went across this whole thing and got it perfectly level, side to side and end to end on this sand. And instead of using perforated pipe like they've used for years, and they still use, we've got these chambers to use for a drain field here. And this is the end, goes in the chamber, and this is a chamber here. It's 4 feet long and about 16 inches high and about 2 feet wide. And they make these in different sizes, bigger than this, but this is big enough for what I need here for just a simple 1-bedroom house. This is going to be plenty for that. Well, anyway, these lock together, and I've got a 28 feet on each side. And this stuff here, you can see this is still damp here where it's shaded, but this stuff drains pretty good. So I'm not worried about that. So anyway, this stuff locks together like that, and then we got an end cap that fits on it, and there's a splash guard here, so the liquid coming out of the pipe out of the sewer hits this, and it doesn't just dig a hole or anything in there. It hits this and has a chance to spread out. It's open on the bottom for the liquid to go through and down and permeate into the soil, and it's also got louvers in here, so evaporation and stuff can come out and come through the overlying topsoil, or sand in this case. We just brought a load of sand in last night and dumped it, and I just got it spread out. So it looks like I'm going to need at least 2 more, if not 3 more loads of sand in here to bring this up to this level. And then I got to get some more armor rock to put on the sides of it so all the sand doesn't wash away in the rain. I might need to get some more sand here to bring this up even higher, because I want to get it up high enough so that it doesn't freeze, frost-proofs these chambers. We don't get freezing weather that often where it gets cold without snow on the ground, so generally the frost level doesn't go down that deep. But just in case, I want to make sure that I've got it plenty deep enough. Now there's my septic tank. I'd run the sewer line from the house down here years ago, before I ever put the foundation in, footings in for the house. I run the septic line out and down here, and we just had it stubbed out down here. It's never been used. So I dug back into this bank. This is all fill material, stuff that we've dug out other places and dumped in here several years ago. And I dug that bank back until I could get position for the septic tank in there in the right spot, and dug down to hard pan, and then put about 1.5 feet or so of that rock that we got from the gravel supplier, or the concrete supplier actually, the sand, and bedded that in on the sand. My son helped me. We got that bedded in, and then backfilled all around it and stuff, and tamped it all in, and got it in pretty good. It's all covered on the other end. I did fill it up with water. Had to fill it up with water to make sure it doesn't get crushed, because it's just a plastic tank, and that's a 1,000-gallon tank. Now I did have a 300-gallon tank that I bought from a guy here in town several years ago that I was planning on using, and I had it out here ready to set up. And then I decided that a 300-gallon tank just wasn't enough for us. We're only going to have 1 bedroom and 1 bathroom and stuff. There's just the 2 of us here. 300-gallon probably would have worked fine, but we probably would have had to have it pumped out every 3 years. With 1,000 gallons here, our pump out time is going to be a lot longer between pump outs. So anyway, that's set in there, bedded in, and then I backfilled all around it with dirt from this pile that was here. And I got 1 24-inch culvert that I cut into 2 3-foot sections, and I still have about a 6-foot section left over there from that, but I had to buy that much of it to get these. Anyway, I cut 2 3-foot sections off there, leveled them all out and everything, and then screwed them down to where the tank lids go. Now I've got the original lids down in there. I don't have those on yet. I just put them in so that they would keep debris and stuff out of that tank, and then I've ordered covers to go over the top of those culverts so they'll be covered up. So I got to clean out the spray foam in around the top where the tank lids go, because the spray foam had expanded and it come out around there, and I need to clean that out so that the tank lids will fit down tight on top of the tank. And then I'm going to cut some circles of styrofoam insulation and put down inside those culverts to prevent the tank from freezing, as the tank will be covered up with dirt and stuff, which will keep it from freezing, but the open right there where those culverts are can get cold there and send cold down into the tank there. So if I cut some styrofoam insulation and stick down in there, that'll insulate those covers, and then there'll be a cover on top of the culvert tops to keep any debris and rain and dirt and snow and stuff like that from coming out of it. So these will be that'll be covered up, probably up pretty close to the top of those culverts, and then it'll cover on top of it. So that should be plenty good to keep that tank from freezing. So I haven't plumbed out of the tank yet. Like I said, we're not using it. I just ran enough water through my sewer line to fill that tank up so that it wouldn't get crushed and collapse when we backfilled around it. The line is hooked into the inlet end. This is the outlet end, and I've got Schedule 40 PVC pipe to stick in there to bring out from that. Oh, I just got the final piece that I needed for this to finish it out. I'll put this up here. That's a collection and distribution box. I just got it in the mail today. So the line coming out from the outlet of the septic tank will go into that box, and then it'll fill that box up to the outlets of the box. And there are 3 outlets on the box. One of them will be plugged up so nothing will come out of it, but the 2 other outlets are exactly the same elevation. So when this is set in here in the ground and the pipes come out of that to go into my chambers, there'll be equal flow into each one of the chambers. And if I would just run down with pipes and split them off with a T, there would be a good chance that one of these chambers would collect most of the water coming out, liquid coming out of there. So this way it gets balanced out, so we have flow, equal flow into both of these chambers. Oh, that was the last piece of the puzzle right there. That just came today, and I can get it set in, and now I can get my piping put in and stuff. So I'm gonna go haul some more sand. The weather is nice here. I flew a little over 2 hours this morning while it was still cool. I put in a hard day yesterday, and it was tough yesterday because it was, well, this weather has been dry here now for almost a week, and it's gotten hot. It was in the mid 80s yesterday, and that may not sound like much to people down in the south, but 4 or 5 days earlier than that, the high was in the 50s, high 50s, so that's a pretty good change for us. And it's been 50 and 60 degrees here now for a couple of months, so better than 80 degrees is pretty hot here, but especially in that airplane. Being in that airplane cabin is like being in a greenhouse that's 3 feet wide and about 6 feet long, and it heats up pretty hot in there, and there's no air conditioner or anything like that in there, so it gets pretty warm in there. And then of course as it gets warm through the day, you start getting turbulence from the thermals and stuff building up as the ground heats up and starts raising, and it gets pretty choppy. So it's a lot of work, hot work flying when it's like that. And I put in over 6 hours yesterday. Anyway, I only had 2.5 hours this morning while it was still cool, so now I can go out, and I got plenty of time to get a couple of loads of sand today. And I want to get enough sand, like I said, to finish covering these chambers up, and maybe bring it up a little bit more than what I have it. I've got it a little over a foot deep on top of the chambers right now. And then I want to get some more sand to stockpile in here, so we have sand for making concrete, and we have sand for sanding the road in the wintertime. So we've got some hauling to do. The weather's supposed to be nice for the next few days, the next 2 weeks, which is bad for the fish because the streams are dried up and the fish can't get up the streams to go spawn. But we don't want it to rain until the weather changes, that the rain stays steady, because one of the things that happens is when it rains, the streams get fresh water in them, the fish get triggered to go upstream, and then it dries out again like it is now and gets hot again, and the streams dry up, and the fish get distressed and wind up dying. There's a big die-off, the lack of oxygen and too much heat in the streams and stuff. They get too crowded in the holes that are there, and they deplete the oxygen and get hot, and then there's a big die-off. Most of the area that I survey here in central southeast Alaska has poor fish returns anyway this year, so the last thing we need is them to get stressed and a die-off of what few fish are returning this year into this area. Anyway, I got to get to work. I'm going to go hook my dump truck, my dump trailer back up, and get ready to go out and get another load. I don't remember how long I've had this dump trailer for now, but it's been probably 15 years maybe. And it's paid for itself a couple of times, I think. We've hauled a lot of material, a lot of rock with that. Almost all the rock and stuff that has built up this property has been hauled in this dump trailer. We've either got out of a borrow pit on a Forest Service land with a permit, or from my friend's pit, hauled logs. I hauled the equipment in it, my excavator in it, and the Bobcat in it. The only problem with that was when we put the tracks on the Bobcat so that we get down into the sand pit and get down into this muddier ground and stuff, with the tracks on the Bobcat, it's about 1 inch too wide to fit inside the dump trailer. So we wound up getting a flatbed trailer to haul the Bobcat on when I've got it on tracks. I had this trailer custom built for me by some guys that were building trailers down in Washington. I had them build it with drop axles on it because we were loading and unloading the excavator in it, and with it sitting up high like normal, it made it a pain to get the excavator up and down the ramps and get into the back of the trailer. Well, that was fine and dandy. The problem with that was that when you go to dump a load, the back end of the trailer winds up hanging up in the load that you're dumping, and it won't dump all the way. So once we got the flatbed trailers to haul it on, haul the machinery on, I went ahead and reversed these drop axles and put them on the bottom sides of the springs instead of the top side of the springs, so it sits up higher now. And that makes it better for dumping the load out of. Now the guys that built this trailer, they put all of the guts of the trailer underneath here. The battery's underneath there, and the hydraulic unit is underneath there. And most of the commercial ones you buy, all of the stuff will be up here on the tongue. Well, their reasoning was sound because people were having a lot of that equipment stolen with it up here on the tongue. And with it underneath the bed here like this, then it prevents it from being stolen, or at least stolen so easily. Now the problem with that is, when the battery goes dead, you can't get the hoist up in the air, the bed up in the air to get to it, to get access to it to work on it. So that's kind of a pain in the butt. Now that battery works pretty good for about 2 loads if they're close together. We've got it hooked into the truck to charge the battery, but it doesn't charge it enough to regenerate what electricity is used when it's dumping a load. So the loads that we make are about an hour, the trips we make are about an hour long, and so I could get about 2.5 dumps. Actually, I get 3 dumps out of 1 battery life before I'd have to change the battery or charge that battery up. Well, we were making several loads a day, so what I've done here now is I hooked up an 8-gauge cable up there to the battery and run it over here to a plug, and I made a jumper. See, back here in the back of the truck, I've got a fuel tank in there for fueling up my airplane, and I'd run a heavy gauge cable back there for the motor on the pump, and I've got a jack on it to plug it in and unplug it when I take the tank in and out of at the end of the season. Well, I made a long jumper that I can hook into that, and I just run it back here to the trailer, and then there on the back of the camper and the canopy there is a switch, and that switch is what I use to remotely turn the pump on and off on the fuel tank so I don't have to crawl up in there to turn that pump on and off when I'm fueling the airplane. But I just turn that on when it's hooked up to the battery here on the dump trailer, and that makes a big difference. That both charges the battery up and doubles up the amperage, or increases the amperage that is being supplied to the battery when we're using it. Well, I'll go ahead and finish dropping that trailer down so we can get this out of here. There's the drain field hooked up, plumbed in. It's been a few days since I was able to work on this. Last thing I was doing was hauling sand in here and spreading it out. This afternoon I got out here to finish plumbing that thing in. That was the last thing I needed to do, was put the plumbing in from the septic tank into the drain field, into the chambers themselves. Just had a heck of a time putting that thing in there. I had it all set up, all level and plumb and everything, and just perfect on it. And when I got to checking the outflows on it with the inflow of the chambers, that box set way down too low, so I had to bring that up quite a ways. And then I just had a heck of a time getting it leveled out. But I've got it leveled now. So we got drain pipe coming out of the septic. I didn't even measure to see how far that was, but it must be about 8 feet. I had to stick it inside of the septic tank a ways because there's a T that goes on in there to keep the sludge and stuff from going out into the drain field. There it is there. There's the adapter that goes on the inside of the septic tank. That tees off, so you got a long neck of it that sticks down into the liquid in the septic tank. You get scum in there, soap scum and fat and things like that in there, and that'll float to the surface. So that inlet will be down below, and then the top of it is open so that you don't get a vapor lock or anything like that, and also so you can go down through that and clean that out if it gets plugged up. But anyway, that's still got to go into the tank and hooked onto the pipe in there. And we didn't do that yet because we didn't have the pipe in there yet. Like I said, the pipe comes out of the septic tank there, goes to a couple of elbows, drops down, and then goes over into the distribution box. Now that box has 4 openings in it. One of them is higher than the other 3, and that was the inlet. So you want it higher than the outlets. And then there's 3 outlets, so you can run 3 different systems on it. I'm only running 2, so there's a plug in the one outlet. And I want that level so the water, the fluid, liquid will run out of the septic tank and down and collect in that collection box, and then it'll raise up to a point where it's level and it'll drain equally into both chambers. Here's what it looks like from the outflow end of it. You get the outflow, there's a rubber gasket that goes in the end of the septic tank. There's one on the other end for the inlet. We had a heck of a time with that one because they've got a Schedule 80 pipe, or an ABS pipe, coming out going into that, and it just would not fit into that rubber gasket. Well, I got to examine it, trying to figure out what else to do, and I found out that there's a reducer ring in there. So it's got a reducer in it to reduce down to the Schedule 40 pipe thickness. Pipe here on this end, Schedule 40 pipe, fit right in that without any problem. I put a little bit of soap on it, dishwasher soap on it, to make sure it slid in there easy. And then I had build up a little bit of sand there to hold that up. We've got it a nice slope on it coming down here to the elbows. And then here's the distribution box. Got gaskets on that on 3 sides, the inlet and 2 outlets, and then there's a plug for the 3rd outlet. And then of course it goes into the chambers. And I just threw some sand and stuff on the chambers on those AND gates there. I had to take those into the shop and find a hole saw and cut holes in it to fit the pipes through there. And then the pipes just stick in there about 1.5 inches or so. And then there's a splash guard down on the bottom of it, so the liquid, as it comes out of there, it runs down on that splash guard and doesn't erode into the soil underneath. And there's looking into the distribution box. This is the inlet or the drain out of the septic tank, and that's higher than these 2 drains here, one on each side. And that box drops down there about a foot below those 2, so there's going to be an accumulation of about a foot of liquid in that. And then of course we've got a plug in the 3rd outlet hole, which is at the same height as the other 2 outlet holes. So if you keep that nice and level, then the fluid should flow equally out through both of those pipes into the chambers, and both of them should work equally that way. So the last thing I did a few days ago was bring in another load of sand, and I didn't get it spread out, but that gives me enough sand, almost enough sand, to finish filling this in, to backfill over all these pipes and stuff. But I'm going to wait to do that and let all these pipes and that distribution box settle in before I do it, to make sure that they're fully supported underneath and it stays level Now I've got that distribution box packed in there pretty good, so hopefully it'll stay level, but I'll let it sit there for a few days and let all that stuff settle down. It'd be nice if we got some rain or something here to pack all this in and settle it in. And there's a cover that goes over that distribution box, so that'll be buried completely. Oh, anyway, that's my day's work today. It took me a lot longer than I expected at getting that doggone distribution box in there at the right elevation and getting it so it was level again. That seemed to prove to be more of a challenge than it should have been, but it's all done now. It's Monday, August 26th, and summer is officially over here in southeast Alaska. We had our first big storm of the season yesterday. Oh, anyway, that's the start of the fall season for us here, which is a good thing. It's been a hot, dry summer, and the streams have all been really dry, and the salmon have not been able to go up the streams to spawn. They're all sitting down in the salt water, wondering where all the water is for them, fresh water is for them to go up and spawn. Some of them that have gone up in some of the streams have wound up dying because of the warm temperatures and stuff like that. So anyway, now if it keeps raining and the weather keeps like this and cools off, then this fish will have a chance to go up the rivers, up the streams and stuff and spawn. Well, meanwhile, I've been making a little bit of progress here on the septic system. I got the drain field all laid out and all hooked up, and then I hauled several loads of sand in here and finished backfilling it all the way up with sand, and I've got about 1.5 to 2 feet of sand on top of the drain chambers and all my hookup and everything. And then we had a bank over there behind where the excavator is of some mud, and that's where we dumped all the mud and everything from the dig out from the house when we did that, and it's just mud. So I dug that bank out and I filled over the top of the septic tank and got it filled up almost to the top of those lengths of culvert that I put in there. And then out here on top of the drain field, on top of the sand, I've got about 1.5 to 2 feet of dirt and stuff on top of that. So that should give it plenty of protection from freezing. And then we went out and got some big rock and armored the side of this where it drops off on the side here so that all the sand doesn't just get washed overboard and that hillside gets held stable. So we hauled quite a bit of rock in for that. So when I dug out that hillside there, well, one of the things that was on that hill that had been buried underneath the salmonberry bushes was a bunch of scrap iron. I had an old Coring 466 excavator for a while. The engine crapped out on it. Well, it sat here for several years kind of in the way. I finally disassembled it, and I've got pieces of it. I had scattered all over. I had pieces of it on that hillside over there. So I had to move all that stuff out of the way to get into that mud and to pull that bank out of there and kind of open that up. So this stuff is right now is sitting right here where the old hot tub, the bathhouse was. This is where we were using to back in here to haul the sand and stuff in here to fill this septic system and get access for working on it. Well, anyway, I've got that filled up there around my septic tank. Let's take a walk up there and take a look at that before we get too wet. It's starting to rain here again now. Well, this is what I got up here now. This is, well, of course, this spot right here where the excavator is sitting, that was nothing there. In this area behind where the septic tank is, there's where the septic tank is there. You can see where I've got the culverts right there. That's the septic tank. That was all open down there. And then we had a bunch of clay piled up right here. And I did have some red cedar logs stacked up in here for quite a while. I moved those out. So anyway, right there at the edge of the septic tank, that dropped off pretty steep right there. And that's all filled in now with mud. So the mud came from just to the left of where the septic tank is now, back this way. And you can see where the cut is on it right now. So I've cut all that down and to use to fill over the top of the septic tank and to backfill over the drain field and stuff. That's all been cut down. I leveled that all out, moved all of that, well, not all of it. There's still junk from that coring right there on top of the bank. And there's the turntable there. I can't hardly move that turntable with anything. It's just too heavy for all my machinery to move it. I was able to kind of flip it over with a little excavator, but that's about all I could do with it. So anyway, this was all dug out and it's just mud. So I decided to do something about that, and the last couple of days we've been hauling some rock in here. This is just pit run rock out of a pit out about 7 miles from here. I took the Bobcat out there a couple nights ago, and then yesterday started hauling the rock in here. And I'm just putting a little layer of rock on top of the mud here, so we got something to work on, and I'll bring all of that excavator stuff here and deposit it back over here where it's out of the way, and then I'll have anyway some more working space here that I can stack some of my lumber up and or whatever, I don't know. But it's pretty soft underneath that right now. It's going to take a while for everything to set up to where it's actually usable. Anyway, it's starting to rain, and this camera is not rainproof, so I better go put it away and go load up and go get another load of rock.
Well, there's another little load of rock. I'm gonna go get one more tonight, and we'll see where we are from there. I'll get those spread. I'm getting close to what we need right now to finish that off. I'm running out of rock in the pit out there that I was getting it out of the smaller stuff, the broken 3-inch minus and stuff. There's digging into a lot of the great big rock now, but I filtered out some of that to start with, but we'll go ahead and use some of that stuff to go over the bank, to armor the bank there some more. So anyway, it won't be a waste. So anyway, I better get going before it gets dark and go get another load.